Kakalosh Boker Tov, Masechet Pesahim Kaf, page 120a1. We were talking about over here the entire concept that a person had to eat a kazait matzah at the end. So we made a diuk ba'acharona in, only at the end of the seudah did he have to do it, right? But if he ate the kazait at the beginning of the seudah and afterwards he ate other things, there's no problem. So therefore it's obvious that it's prohibited to eat anything after the matzah of chovah. So says the Gemara, lo mibaye kamar. What does it mean, lo mibaye kamar? Right? Lo mibaye barishona teka'achile te'avon. We're not talking about the chidush at the beginning, which means the matzah, the kazait matzah that you're eating at the beginning of the meal, because you want to eat it when you still want to eat. Aval ba'acharona, but afterwards, when you already filled up your stomach, maybe you're going to come and you're going to eat what's called an achila gasa. Lo, so I would think that it's going to be asur to do such a thing. Kamashmalan comes teach you that you're allowed to eat after the kazai matzah, even the last one. And we're not going to suspect that it's going to be a problem of achila gasa. So says the Gemara, Morzutra matri hachi. Morzutra taught the following. Amar Rav Yosef, Amar Rav Yehuda Meshmuel. It says Rav Yosef in the name of Rav Yehuda Meshmuel. Maftirin le'achar matzah fikoman. Which means nowadays that we do not have the Korban Pesach, you are allowed to eat after the Achilat Matzah Fikoman, which means you could come and there's no isur of eating dessert afterwards. So says the Gemara, Neima Mesayele, why don't we bring a proof where it says, En maftirin echara Pesach Fikoman, achara Pesach delo, only when there's a Korban Pesach, then you're not allowed to eat anything afterwards. Aval achar matzah, but after the eating of matzah by itself without the Korban Pesach, Maftirin, you could have a dessert. So says the Gemara, it's not a proof. Why? Lo mi baye kamar, the same thing. You didn't need to say it. Lo mi baye achar matzah lo nafish tameh. Right? Not only in a case where you didn't have to say it to do with the matzah, that it's not going to have the taste anymore. Aval achar pesach, but after the pesach, which the meat, it stays the taste much more in your mouth. So eima lo, I would say there's no problem of eating it. Kamash malan, that even in a case of meat, there's still a problem. Meaning in a case of matzah by itself, for sure you're not allowed to eat anything afterwards, because you took away the taste. But in a case of Korban Pesach, where there's still the taste of the meat in your mouth, I would say it's permitted. Kamashmanan, no. So Meitvei, we're going to ask the following questions. He says, eat all these types of crackers, but they're matzot type of crackers. A person could come and they could fill their stomach up as long as they eat a kazait matzah at the end. Ba'acharona eat only at the end. Parishona no. So therefore it's only on the last kazait of matzah that you have to eat the kazait and nothing afterwards. But the beginning, there's no problem. So says the Gemara again, lo mi baye kamar, lo mi baye barishona kachi leteavon, the same answer that we said at the beginning of the daf. Aval ba'acharona datu michla achila gasa, I would have said there's no problem. Kamashmanan, we're not going to suspect for achila gasa. Amar Rava says, matzah bazman hazeh, matzah nowadays is doraita. Which means even though there's no Korban Pesach, there's still a biblical command, there's still a mitzvah doraita to eat matzah. Maror is midrabanan. Maror is only going to be midrabanan. So says the Gemara, Umayshna maror. Why is it that the maror is drabanan? Tichtiv al matzot umrorim yuchol bizman diika Pesach. Only when there's going to be a Korban Pesach, it's doraita. Yesh maror, then there's going to be matzor. Bizman diika Pesach yesh maror. Bizman deleka Pesach leka maror. So matzah nami, it's also written matzah. Which means the same pasuk that you have for maror, you have for matzah. It's written al matzot umrorim yochelu the korban pesach. So therefore, if you want to say that the maror is derabanan, because if you don't have the korban pesach, it's derabanan. So to the matzah should be the same thing. So answers the Gemara, matzah medar her hadabekad. The matzah was written again in the pasuk. It's written ba'erev tochelu matzot. What does that mean? In the nighttime you're going to eat matzot. So it says, since it says again by itself, without the Korban Pesach, you have to eat matzot the nighttime, doraita. But Ravacha bar Yaakov, Amar Ravacha bar Yaakov says, echad ze ve'echad ze midrabanan. Both are derabanan. Also matzah and also maror midrabanan. Elaha ketiv, but it's written by erev tochelu matzot. Right? So why should it be derabanan? It's a special pasuk, making it, designating it that it's a separate halacha, that you should have matzah. So says the Gemara, no. There you need it for tameh v'shaya b'derech chukah, somebody that's tameh and he's far off, which means that even though he cannot be mikayem the Korban Pesach, because if you remember, A person that's tamei, he can bring the korban pesach. He has to do pesach sheni. Still, the salka daitachmina, I would have thought to say, Kevin the pesach loachli, since he cannot eat the korban pesach, matzah umaror namin lo nechol. He's not going to eat matzah umaror. Kamash malan tochelu matzot. He still has to eat matzah. Meaning, even though he can't eat the korban pesach, means it's tamei, he still eats matzah. V'Rava amar lecha, and Rava is going to tell you, no. Meaning, because remember that according to him, he said it's Toraita. So he says, V'Rava amar lecha. So from him, for Rava, where does he learn that somebody that's tameh, which cannot eat the korban pesach, still he has to eat the matzah umaror? So he says, V'Rava amar lecha, tameh v'shei b'derech lo tzricha. You don't need a pasuk. Why? Delo gare me'arel v'nechar. He's not any worse than a person that never had a circumcision or ben nechar, a goy, right? A ben nechar over here, it says over here, the time was we learned in the pasuk, v'chol arel lo yochal bo. What does it mean? Anybody that does not have a circumcision is not allowed to eat the korban pesach. Bo and ochel. He cannot eat the korban pesach. Aval ochel b'matzah umaror, but he could eat the korban. He could eat the matzah umaror. Okay. Here it says here the ben nechar is a Jew which is going against the mitzvot of Torah. He's called a ben nechar because he's like a stranger, right, to his father in heaven. That's why it's called ben nechar. It doesn't mean literally a goy, the son of a stranger, which means a goy, but it means somebody that does not do the Torah mitzvot. So still, that person that's not doing the Torah mitzvot, or a person that never had a brit milah, he's not able to do the korban pesach, but he still has to eat matzah umaror. So that's why, according to Rava, you don't even need a pasuk. Ve'idach, and the other one, Rav Acha bar Yaakov, what does he do with this? He says, Ketiv b'hai uchtiv b'hai. You says it's written by both, and you need it, which means it's written the concept about the achilat matzah by an arel ben nechar, and it's also written that you cannot learn with it. Why? Tanya Kavated de Rava, we learned, it says over here that basically you needed both psukim. Okay? Here it doesn't explain why. Let me see here. The Gemara just says, tzricha. Because if it was only going to be written by an arel and ben nechar, that they're obligated in the mitzvah of achilat matzah on the night of Pesach, I would say only they are chayavim, because there's no other time for them to make up the korban pesach. But a tamen derech rochoka, there's Pesach sheni. So I would have thought that they eat the matzah umaror in Pesach sheni, but not in Pesach rishon, right? So that's why you need it. And if the Torah would have only written Be'erev tochlu matzot, I would have thought to say that this is going to be only on arel ben nechar, because there's no tashlumim. Okay? But a tameh v'shaya b'derech rochoka, that there are tashlumim. I would have said that it's already matzah, enough the matzah on the second Pesach Sheni, and they don't need it on the first one. So that's why the pasuk needs both different sides. Okay, fine. Tanya kaveted Rava, we learned in accordance to Rava. For 6 days you're going to eat matzot, and the 7th day it's an atzeret, right, for Hashem your God, which is on the 7th day becomes also like another chag. Mashavi, just like the 7th day is the reshut. You're not obligated to eat matzah on the 7th day of Pesach. You're just not allowed to eat chametz. So 6 days is also a reshut. You're not obligated. My tama, what's reasoning? It's something which was in the general rule, and it came out to teach. So it didn't teach only on itself, on the entire general rule. What does that mean? This is one of the Rabbi Shmuel Omer, one of the 13 attributes of how do we expound psukim. I would have thought that also the first night is going to be a reshut. What does that mean? That it's an obligation. But that's only if there's a bit of mikdash. How do we know? The Torah made it fixed, like a chova, like an obligation, because of the pasuk, ba'erev tochelu matzot. Says a Mishnah, the bottom half, kuf kaf amud aleph. Yashnu miktsatan yochelu. Yochelu, kulan lo yochelu. If only part of the chabura fell asleep, the other ones are still allowed to come and continue eating even after you wake them up. But if everybody went to sleep, right, so then they're not allowed to eat even after everyone woke up, right? Why? Because then it's like you're eating it in 2 different places, which means as long as there's still a group that they're still awake, you're allowed to continue eating. But the second everybody, then no. Rabbi Yosef argues, and he says, no, nitnamnu, if they just dozed off, but they didn't actually mamash go to sleep, they're allowed to eat it. But if they completely fell asleep, lo yochelu, they're not allowed to eat it. Okay, even if the other people, they stayed up. Meaning, let's say I was just dozing off. So dozing off is okay. But if I went to sleep and I wake up and I realize that you guys are still there eating, I'm not allowed to eat anymore. Because then for me, it's already too late. The Pesach, which is going to be after Chatzot, is considered notar, leftovers. Mitameh yadayim, it's going to be mitameh the hands, which means it makes a person tameh. right? Pigul v'anotar mitamim ta'im. Also pigul. Pigul is if you slaughtered a sacrifice and you had the wrong intention when to eat it, or things like that. Or notar is leftovers. There's also going to be mitamim ta'yadayim. Yeah, we're on 120b. Says the Gemara. Rabbi Yosef Omer. Rabbi Yosef says, nitamnemu. He says if they dozed off, yochelu, they're allowed to eat it. Nidemu, if they completely fell asleep, lo yochelu, they're not allowed to eat it. Hechi dami. What's the case? Nitamnem that they dozed off. He's half there, which he's sleeping but not sleeping, awake and not awake. Going, for example, if you call him, he's going to answer you. But he's not going to answer you logic. If you remind him, then he's going to be able to give you this logic. Abaye have a yativ, right? Kamed Rabba. Abaye was sitting in front of Rabba. He saw that he was dozing off. He said, "Minem kanaim more what? You're dozing off." Right? I'm only in mitnamnem. Utnanu, we learned to the Mishnah. You're allowed to nivdemu, but if you completely fell asleep, you're not allowed to. Okay, 2 dots. HaPesach achar chatzot mitameh et hayadayim. Alma, so you see from here, mechatzot avil notar, that after chatzot it's considered leftovers. Mantana, who's the one that says this? So he says, Rav Yosef says, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariyahu. The Tanya, but we learned in the Braita, v'chlut b'tzah b'layla zeh. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariyahu omer, ne'emar kama layla zeh, ne'emar lan v'averti b'tzah b'layla zeh. Which means that according to Shitat Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, you're only allowed to eat the Korban Pesach until Chatzot. So too, you're only allowed to have until Chatzot. Meaning you don't have the entire night. You have until Chatzot. After Chatzot, that's it. Amalo Rabbi Akiva, says Rabbi Akiva, v'alo ne'emar chipazon. It's written chipazon. Adshat chipazon, until the time of chipazon. Im kain. So therefore, which means until alot hashachar. So you're able until dawn to eat the Korban Pesach. So what does it teach you by Laila Zeh? I would have thought to say that you could eat it during the daytime, which means that even though you slaughter the Korban Pesach, Erev Pesach on the 14th, you're only allowed to eat it during the nighttime. Because it says, it's only going to be eaten in the nighttime and not during the daytime. Okay? Give me 1 second. Sorry, according to Rabbi Akiva, what does he do with Balayla Zeh? Which means, what's he going to do with Halayla Zeh, this night? So he comes and he says, he needs he comes to exclude another nighttime. I would have thought to say, Hoilu Pesach Kadashim Kalim. The Pesach is Kadashim Kalim. We say it every single morning. Right? Pesach Kadashim Kalim. Right? Kadashim, yeah? Alush, you remember? You say this every morning. Yeah? Shlamim is also Kadashim Kalim. So just like Shlamim is it's 2 days and 1 night. So to the Korban Pesach, I should place night times instead of day times, which means it should be 2 nights and 1 day. That's why it says no, only this night. This night, not every other night.
One night and before the morning. That's it. After the Chatzot, you cannot eat it no more. Finish.
Exactly. After Chatzot, that's it. According to Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, he's going to tell you, you already learned it from Lo Tutiru Meno Aboker. You're not allowed to leave it over the next morning. So therefore, from there, I already know that to do with the Korban Pesach, I can't leave it over. Rabbi Akiva is going to tell you, if it didn't tell you the Torah hazeh, balayla hazeh, havamina, I would have thought to say my boker. What does it mean boker? Boker sheni, the next day, which means the Tetzayin of Nisan, the 16th of Nisan. Okay, Rabbi Akiva is going to tell you, whenever it's written boker, it means the first morning, not the second morning. Meaning, when I say don't leave it over until the morning, we're not talking about the morning, the day afterwards, the same morning. So Amar Rava says, if you're going to eat nowadays matzah after chatzot, you're not yotzei chovah. So says the Gemara Pshita, obviously, given the Kasher Pesach, since the proximity, right? The proximity between the Korban Pesach and it's like the Korban Pesach. So says Gemara, no, Ma'odatim, I would have thought, say, ha'apkim kra me'ekesh. I took it out of the ekesh. It took it out of the juxtaposition. And therefore, you would say it's okay. Kamash Malan comes to teach you, that when it brought it back to the first inyan, which is talking about that even nowadays, that there's no Korban Pesach, it's still the ekesh of Korban Pesach, just like Korban Pesach until Chatzot, Matzah is until Chatzot. And this is halakha l'maaseh, why the lechatechila, we always have to eat afikoman before Chatzot. Okay?